Good afternoon to you. Mark Stott of HurricaneTrack.com here with a quick look at Tropical Storm Adrian in the Southeast Pacific. Really not doing much right now, but I did want to talk about it and not ignore it. It's not just the big ticket, Matthews and whatever that we're interested in. All storms matter. That's the way I look at it. So let's talk about this. Top winds are still no more than about 40 knots or so, and you can see a very small wind field. Nice tracking map that the Hurricane Center uses now. I really like it. And you see the 5-day forecast here, this big circle. Why is this important? Well, that tells me that it's not going to be going anywhere fast at the end of the forecast period. And so the cone of uncertainty there, the error cone, if you will, kind of stalled out. And so you get this circle instead of, as an example, it kind of moving on out like this with time. You've seen that before, and this doesn't look like it. This is instead indicating that a very slow-moving system will be in the cards over the next few days. One good thing, though, is we won't have any effects to land up here. It does not look like over the next 3 to 5 days. Maybe some increase in the surf action, but even that should be minimal for the most part. Looking at the visible satellite animation of Adrian this afternoon, you can see it's not really that healthy looking. The deeper convection here is being sheared off to the north and east of the vigorous low-level center, which is in there. I'll show you that in a moment on the vorticity chart from the Wisconsin site that I like to use. But this is just not a healthy looking system, and as such it's not strengthening very much. And as I'll show you a little later on in the presentation here, it may not strengthen much further. We'll see. It's an interesting enigma. It looked like yesterday that this was going to try to become a hurricane, and now I'm not so sure. But that's intensity forecasting for you. So here is the vorticity signature. Now this is at 850 millibars. This is where we're looking right here. So this is about 5,000 feet up, so it's not that high, not even a mile off the ocean surface. And it definitely has a vigorous low-level vorticity signature, very energetic, and it's there. But the upper level vorticity is kind of moved off like this. I'm just going to kind of draw it in. This isn't necessarily perfect, but you get the idea. It's displaced, and so they're not aligned with each other, and therefore it's not going to strengthen until and unless that happens. So we'll see what this looks like tomorrow, and I'll try to pull up the 700 millibar vorticity map as well to kind of compare and contrast them. The upper level winds, I think this explains a little bit of it. You see, this is where Adrian is located, and some of these winds are coming out, maybe blowing across the system a little bit too hard. I think that's kind of obvious, and so it's not going to strengthen too much because of that, for obvious reasons. And that's reflected in the guidance envelope. If we toss out some of these, outliers, we'll call them, and just focus here, the overall guidance package, pretty much everything stays within tropical storm parameters over the next 120 hours plus. Yesterday there was more of a aim towards this becoming a Category 2 hurricane, maybe, and not so much today. So we'll see how the Hurricane Center responds on their next update, probably bringing down the intensity a little bit, but they're not going to knee-jerk windshield wiper it back and forth, so to speak. It's not affecting land. It's not forecast to affect land. So there is time to watch and see how things evolve instead of making big reactions every 6 hours or so. The guidance for track is interesting too. We remember yesterday it looked like it was going to, the overall package of envelope, the guidance envelope looked more like this. And, it was kind of, I won't say definitive, but it was a lot more of a consensus, it looked like, from most of the models, of some kind of a bend back towards the coast. Today, well, we introduced the word divergence in the models, and in fact this just initiated a little while ago at 18 UTC, roughly 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And, you have some of the models coming over here into Central America, Southeast Mexico, some of them just kind of stalling out around here, and then some of them bending it off this way. So we call that a divergent model package, and the guidance envelope is split. And so the end result you get this, where it's kind of throwing darts at a board there. And you think about it, that's kind of what this is like. A big old dartboard. Maybe this will be in the middle. We'll see. So, again, the good news is that this won't affect land anytime soon, if at all. Now let me show you the GFS ensemble. Now this is really, this is one time I get to laugh because it's not going to affect anybody. This is truly comical. I mean, look at that mess. That is definitely a big old mess of string. It's like my 2-year-old daughter got hold of a bunch of different pieces of yarn and just made them into a mess and said, "Hey, Daddy, here you go." And that's what you end up with. She tries, but that's not what we saw yesterday. Let's put it that way. If you saw yesterday's video, even the GFS ensembles, a lot of them had this sort of curve to them. Today, nope, not so much. So this too tells me this is going to be a slow mover, and anything could happen with it. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this hangs out over here and just mills around for the next several days. And if it does that, it's going to churn up the water. Even if it's a weak tropical storm, it's going to churn up some of this water through here and cool it off, and that'll inhibit significant strengthening as well. So there will be a few interesting things to watch. Even though this is still the off season in the Atlantic Basin, I guess since we have this forming in the Pacific, we'll just call it the hurricane outlook and discussion, at least the end of it anyway. All right, well, that's it from me for today. I appreciate you tuning in this Wednesday afternoon. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com, and I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.